All right, welcome back. We are ACI Course 13, second half of Class 3. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try to help fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Studying emptiness and dependent origination, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with that strong intention, we turn our minds back to our precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet, to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, please, please teach me that, show me that. Help me become that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the pure world. They are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we realize Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings totally awaken for the benefit of every single other. All right. So last class we were learning that topic called Chi Chedak, and Chi, things that are general, means those things that are in charge of everything else, right? Joanna says no. It means there, so you're saying there's some other definition of things that are general in the context of our last class. Yes, Joanna says yes. So you can tell me how many definitions of different kinds of cheese we got.
There's 3 different kind of cheese.
And you can give us one, just any one of
Just
those
anyone.
definitions, an example, any one of them.
There's Rikchi, and the Rikchi is the existing thing. I have to look it up. An existing thing which subsumes the multiple things which are of its type. For example,
Right.
all knowable things.
Good. Good. Thank you. So that encompasses all different kinds of things that are general, right? No. So who nodded their head? Who's Laura? You're brave. So you're saying there are other definitions for things that are general.
Yes, there are.
Yes. So you can give me any one of the other two.
Okay. Sokchi, this is the third one, isn't it? But yeah, it's like I don't know exactly the definition, but it's like a thing that depends on its parts, or a thing that, no, I don't know exactly how to say it. My heart, sorry. It's related with the parts that uh, uh, are of a general, or general, it's as its part. Any particular made of its parts. Any particular existing thing that is made of its parts, sorry. And the classical example is a water pitcher. Could be the handle of the water pitcher, the base of the water pitcher, the roundness of the water pitcher. And if we go deeper at the molecules,
Exactly. Good. Okay. I'll do the second one that we learned, the third one, because it's too hard. When you go to do your homework, your quiz, and it's on your final too, just memorize it and write it down, and then think the simple version. So here's the precise version because it's useful to get our minds thinking. And I'll give you the simple version too. So the second type of thing that is general that we learned is a general as far as objects, dunchi, otherwise known as actual mental images. And one one one's definition needs to be related to a specific thing, curiously. Dunshis are not specific things, but in order to define it, we go through its specific thing. So the answer key says the general as far as objects for a water pitcher is defined as that element which is imputed to be the water pitcher, but which is not. That thing which appears to be the water pitcher to the conceptual state of mind which is perceiving a water pitcher, but which is, however, not the water pitcher. So all of that is trying to say there is an experience in which there appears to be something that something gets its identity by way of the mind's mental image, calling it the thing. The general as far as objects, meaning how the non-specific gets its specification. How does a thing become a water pitcher versus a horse versus a flower vase versus a pancake, right? It's coming from the observer. So this one, as slippery and difficult as it is like the important one to work with and study. So the classical example is the appearance to the second instant of a conceptual state of mind which is perceiving a water pitcher of the opposite of all that is not the water pitcher of that second instant. So this is saying that by the time the water pitcher is our experience, every other possible thing that could have been there is not there because water pitcher is there. It implies that before water pitcher was there, anything could have been there. Right? And our mind goes, no, once water pitcher, always water pitcher. But as we're learning with it and getting more comfortable with these ideas, it doesn't seem so weird that anything could be anything until the mental image goes onto it. Once the mental image is there, we interact with the mental image as if that identity is in the object coming at me. Right? Once it's a mental image, it's real for us. And we do interact with it. But once it's that, it can't, well, I was going to say it can't be anything else. It can still be anything, can't it? Because you and I can both be looking at the same object. And we could be seeing completely different things, couldn't we? And it's like, no, everybody's going to see some version of glasses. But no, the fly doesn't. Even the baby doesn't until they're a certain age. Okay, so this one of the dunchi of all the cheese and chedjaks, that's the one to work with. And rikchi, the type characteristic, that helps us understand the label things get. But the dunchi helps us understand why things get the label that they get. Now, we have to then be asking, well, wait a minute, where does that mental image come from? Right? How does that work? And we're getting there, of course. So on your quiz, the second question was, why is this study of quality and characteristic, chichedok, so vital for those who wish to see emptiness directly? So in this process of learning this distinction between generals as far as types and generals as far as objects, meaning how does a non-specific get its specification? How does a non-specific get delineated into an object? How do we recognize stuff? The study of general as far as types and general as far as objects allows us to understand that when we perceive something, we do so actually by perceiving a mental object and mistaking it for an actual object. This mental object is forced upon us by our past karma. An actual object that existed independent of this process does not exist. And its absence is what emptiness is. By realizing directly how we perceive objects through mental images, we realize what the ultimate meaning of dependent origination is. This realization occurs during the final hours before seeing emptiness directly at the supreme object, chuchok, stage of the path of preparation. So Geshe-la has described that sequence so clearly that you suddenly recognize that it's seeds from your own mind laying onto information, making the object be the object that we experience. Technically, the seeds are ripening me seeing object, me seeing water pitcher, not just water pitcher. But then he just leaves it at that. Oh, seeds from my mind. Wouldn't we ask? Well, wait a minute, what are those seeds? Where did they come from? How did they get there? Where do they stay? Right? All those questions that we study about mental seeds that help take us through the different schools. So fortunately, we know the punchline. Those mental seeds, that's the words we use for the imprint in our consciousness that happens as we are aware of ourselves thinking, saying, doing towards that which we perceive as other. So any interaction is making imprint in our mind. Those imprints are causes for future results. Technically, they're not causes for a result until the result happens, but they are potential causes. They are potentials. Something happens, and though any given potential reaches some kind of threshold and manifests into its cause, into its result. Sorry, it just got a big lightning strike. Manifests into its result. And that result is me and my experience. And of course, the ignorant seeds are me and my experience of the thing happening to me. Instead of wisdom, me and my experience ripening. So the mental seeds we're talking about opening up got in there by way of what we thought, said, did towards other in the past. What we think, say, do towards that plants new seeds. Seeds out, seeds in, constantly. I mean, not seeds out, you know what I mean. Ripening, planting, ripening, planting, ripening, planting. It's happening constantly. Is there anything that we can experience outside of that process? No. So is there anything that we can experience outside of the results of our own past behavior? No. Does that mean that there's anything that our own current behavior could not create? No. Woohoo! How do I stop creating the stuff that comes back to me as yucky and be creating stuff that will come back to me as wonderful for everybody? And that's our path, right? That's our training. We are, you're right. So that's why we're studying type generals and generals as far as objects, so that we can witness this process and then as a result come to see, oh, nothing exists in any other way than that, especially me, right? That's the most important thing. And then you come out of that experience and it's like, oh man, now I know what I can do to stop all this mistake. All right, so that's why we're studying this. That's why we're studying course 13. Everything Buddha taught was to get us to that series of experiences. Shuchok, direct perception, path of habituation. Hopefully all of it imbued with bodhicitta. So the conveyor belt we end up on is the one to Buddhahood, meaning a being made of love, compassion, wisdom, versus the conveyor belt that goes to nirvana. Nothing wrong with nirvana. We'll reach it also. But, right, we aspire to we're having a big thunderstorm. And the lightning's going. Blah. I think my computer like knocks it all out, right? So you can't hear it. All right, then. The second half of class 3 is about the Chedaks. And then we go on to a little bit about the definitions for debate and logic. So let's work with Chedak. Before we do, we want to put on our thinking caps, meaning let's do the Omara Pachana Di. Ask Manjushri, ask your holy angel, whoever they are. To understand what this one's trying to say deeper than the actual words. So here's the Omarapatana D in case you still need to look at it. Okay, so recall that precious holy being. Ask them to help you understand. Do 7. Right. So wait. Let me go back. Before we start JDoc. No, I changed my mind. Let's go into JDoc. So the JDocs are the things characteristic of the quality in question. So really the word JDoc means characteristic of. Remember, it does not mean a characteristic, right? A characteristic of Sarani is she's got gray hair. That's not JDoc. Right? Characteristic of Sarani is gray hair. See the difference? JDoc's not describing something. It's identifying a piece that then reveals the category. Right? If you were thinking that Sarani was some brilliant redhead, and then someone says, consider the chi, Sarani, a Chedak of that chi is gray hair. You'd go, oh, then I'm somebody's mistaken here, because a thing characteristic of the quality Sarani I know is redhead. Which reveals that the thing characteristic of the quality actually doesn't come from the quality. However, so let's go back. Chedak. Characteristic of. So, but that's not the definition. The definition is a member of a general category. If the general category is motor vehicle, Ford, Chevys, Toyotas, right, are the JDoc, the members of that general category. But more accurately, the meaning is things characteristic of that quality. They give two classical examples, Nupo and Bumpa. Nupo means working thing. Nupo, working thing, means changing thing. Anything with which is changing automatically is doing something. Anything which is a working thing is automatically doing something and changing. It's changing, and it's changing something else. That's what we mean by doing something, right? So when we say Nupo is one of the classical examples of JDoc, what's the chi of its JDoc? If working thing is the specific, the category it's one of would need to be like all existing things, right? Or all knowable things. Okay. So Nupo as the JDoc. Their second classical example is Bumpa, which means water pitcher, our friend the water pitcher. It also is a thing characteristic of a general. So our water pitcher, we could say water pitcher is actually a Shadok of Nupo. Water pitcher is a specific example of the general category working thing. And the general category working thing could be called a specific instance of the even more general category, all existing things. Right? So a Chedok is always a thing characteristic of some bigger quality, bigger, what's the word I need? Some bigger category. And that bigger category is also a Chedok of some bigger category. Right? And at some point, we see how this relationship explains our experiences. So now I was able to explain to you Nupo and Boompa working thing and water pitcher, and how if you look at either one way, we're looking at them as a thing characteristic of a more non-specific. And if we look at them another way, they can be the non-specific of which there are multiple things that make up it. You understood that as I said it, I hope. But there really needs to be some criteria, because what if it wasn't so obvious as working thing and water pitcher? What if I said, let's consider water pitchers, and I have two twin water pitchers. They look identical. And I said, which one's the thing characteristic of the she working thing? We'd say both of them, and we'd not be differentiating the two water pitchers because they are so identical. But then technically there should be a way for us to figure out whether it's really true that both of those water pitchers are the category, that defining the category that we're talking about. What if, when you look closer, one of those water pitchers is made of cardboard and the other one's made of glass? Like one's flat and one's hollow, but you didn't see it. Wait, all of a sudden, one of them doesn't qualify. So it's like what we take as being obvious, we need actual criteria, because there'll be situations in the future if we work with this stuff where we need some criteria to be able to distinguish whether or not what we think is a Chedok of a chi, whether it really is. And it's like, really? And we'll get there later. So there are 3 tests for whether or not something qualifies of a thing characteristic of the general category that's being considered. You can't just decide it is, like we did. Water pitcher, working thing. You have to sort it out. So what we knew about water pitchers at that first example is we know that being a water pitcher is to be something that functions, that can function, right? It'll hold water. It'll pour water. You can use it to pour water. So when we check, is water pitcher a thing characteristic of the general category working thing, we have to say, is a water pitcher a working thing? In order to answer the question. But there's another way of asking that question that makes us think a little bit more deeply, which is being a working thing a general quality of which being a water pitcher is characteristic? So it's like, yeah, it's like, why make it so complicated on purpose, right? To get us thinking about relationships, and then instead of just saying, yeah, of course, water pitcher is a working thing, is being a working thing a general quality of which being a water pitcher is characteristic? It means we need to know both. We need to know what it is to be a working thing, and we need to know what it is to be a water pitcher. And we need to be able to know the relationship between those two things. And in order to know anything, we have to have those seeds in our minds ripening as mental pictures, but that's an aside. All right, so there are 3 ways to check whether our water pitcher is a thing characteristic of the general working thing. Here are these 3. The QQQ. Nupo Yin is the first one. Nupo Yin means it is a working thing. Is it a working thing? First check. We're checking to see if water pitcher is a thing characteristic of the general called working thing. So you check, is water pitcher a working thing? Yes. Is the emptiness of the water pitcher a working thing? No, because it's unchanging. So anytime we're checking for Cheda, we look to see, is the thing that I'm calling the thing characteristic of the greater category, does it actually have that quality? Because if it doesn't, then it can't be the Cheda. So that's just one. Number 2, Q Nupo Dang Dak Chik Dudrel. Dak Chik Dudrel means to share a relationship such that to be one is to be the other. Dak Chik means to be one is to be the other. Drel is sharing a relationship. Is the working thing, Nupo, how is the work, what is the relationship between working thing and the object of consideration, our water pitcher? Is it such that to be one is to be the other? Now, wait a minute. What if I had said, let's consider water pitcher as the general category. No, that's not going to work. I can't get a good example. Dakchik, to be one is to be the other. Oh no, here. Working thing and changing thing. So let's consider all working things. And if I were to say changing things is a thing characteristic of working things, it's like, no, actually it's not. Because changing thing and working thing, those are synonyms, different ways to say the same thing. Isn't it? When something works, it also changes. If something changes, it's also working. So they do, can you even say they share a relationship? Actually not, because you're talking about the same thing. Does Sarani and David's wife share a relationship? No, they're the same thing, using two different words to describe them. So when we talk about dakchik dudra, to share a relationship, it can only be a one-way relationship in order for it to have a relationship. Because if it's a two-way relationship, you're talking about the same thing. And you don't have a relationship at all. They have to be separate things. So to check your thing characteristic of the general quality, we have to have a one-way relationship, meaning the thing characteristic of the quality must match, but the quality needs to be bigger, a bigger category than the thing characteristic of it. Right? Because if it's smaller, then the thing characteristic of it is too big. And if it's the same, then there's no relationship. You with me? So the second way we figure out that something is a chedak of a chi is there has to be this one-way relationship. Yes, every thing characteristic of the general category is automatically the category, but the category is not automatically the thing specific to it. Because if the category working thing was limited to water pitchers, then water pitcher and all working things would be saying the same thing. And that's not true to life anyway, because there are many things that are not water pitcher that make up the category working things. And that's the third way to establish that our friend the water pitcher is in fact a thing characteristic of the category working thing, because we know that it's only one of many. That's this one. Q Mayan Shing Nupo Dang Impe Shi Tumpa Duma Drup. Oh yeah. Whatever all that means. I don't know the word for word. What it says is there must exist multiple other things which are both not it and still characteristic of the quality. Meaning, in order for it to be true, for our water pitcher to be a thing characteristic of the general working thing, there needs to be other things characteristic of working things that are not water pitcher. Because if all you had was water pitcher as a thing characteristic of working thing, you would not have a differentiation between water pitcher and working thing. But the instant you have water pitcher and car keys, now you can say water pitcher is a thing characteristic of the category working thing. Car keys are another thing characteristic of the category working thing. Horse. Pomegranate tree. Like I'm just looking around to see what I see. Ficus tree, computer. All of these things are things characteristic of the quality working thing. Proving that each one can be so. Because is a pomegranate tree something that functions? Yes. Number one. Number two, does it have a relationship such that to be a pomegranate tree is to be a functioning thing? Yes. Are there other things that are not pomegranate tree that are still functioning things? Yes. Ta-da! Pomegranate tree is a Chedok of the general quality functioning thing. And it's like, thank you very much. We knew that already. Yes, but there'll be reasons we need to take ourselves through those 3 evaluations, particularly when we're blaming somebody or something for something we don't like. That angry yelling boss. Wait, why do I have to figure out whether they're a Chedok of the cheek? What's the, right? Like off class time. But that's the usefulness of this learning to think through. Is the relationship that I'm putting together, is it a valid one? Does it really work like that? Okay. So Geshe-la said, when we are describing this Chi-Chedok relationship, water pitcher and its relationship to the category working thing, he says we can say so therefore water pitcher is characteristic of working thing. And he says if you leave it like that, it won't help us much come to experience ultimate reality. He says if we work with these ideas and instead decide to describe this as there are many things which are characteristic of the quality working thing, which are not water pitchers. Like once we recognize water pitcher is a thing characteristic of working thing, then we say, oh, look, there are many things which are characteristic of the quality working thing, which are not water pitchers. That's implying that water pitcher is a thing characteristic of the quality. And it's revealing to ourselves this negation, perceiving a presence by way of a negation. So this is one of the times Geshe-la says, cook it. Because my own mind is still like scrambling with that. What's the ramification of that? I'll say it one more time. Oh, water pitcher, working thingness. There are many things which are characteristic of the quality working thing, which are not water pitchers. Oh, there are many things which are characteristic of carness, which are not my car. Somehow that's revealing my car, right? A more accurate description of what it what my car is. Have fun with that. So highest school says every single perception we've ever had up until the direct perception of emptiness is mistaken. We're mistaking the mental image of our experience for the thing itself. It's not that things used to be the thing itself, and now we're seeing mental images of it instead. Things have always been nothing but mental images, and we've always thought they were their own thing, including ourselves. So we're mistaking a mental image of a thing for the thing itself. Every moment of since forever, we've been doing that. And that causes all our suffering because we blame that thing for either our happiness or our not happiness. And that means we need to get more or avoid more, etc. We don't realize how it is that our behavior is creating our world, our experiences. We don't recognize that it's through our actions that we create because we don't see from this moment to that moment cause effect. We think we do, but it doesn't work the same all the time. So it's not. So Geshe says we are seeing Chadoks, things characteristic, and not realizing that they are only things characteristic of qualities. And it's like, wait, when we say, it's my projection. It's just my projection, or it's only my projection. That used to drive me nuts. And then my mind still automatically goes, well, if it's projection, it's not real. Because movies, they're not real. What's happening in the movie isn't really happening. The movie's happening. The lost my train of thought. We've been thinking that the thing characteristic of the quality, the specific thing we're interacting with, is the same as the general quality. We're not thinking it intellectually, obviously, because it's so obvious that they're different now that we know to think about it. But in our automatic interaction with things, we think the object with its qualities and characteristics are in it. We think it's the general category and the specific all rolled into one. Our ignorance forces us to relate to objects and ourselves in that way. So it's trying to describe what we mean by self-existent. Mm. It cannot be that the general category and the thing specific to it can be one and the same. We just showed that. There has to be a bigger category of which the individual is only one of many. Which worldly, okay, duh. Ultimately, the only one of many reveals to us how it is that our own unique projection of it is an aspect of this uniqueness of the Chedok of the Chi. That the Chedok is the seed ripening. But what if we didn't have a mental seed, an idea for the general category? What if we did not know working thing? And you had a whole slew of working things sitting in front of you. Would there be any working things sitting in front of you if you did not know working thing? No, you could bump into them. If our mind doesn't know carness, is there anything that mom can say that can make us come to know a car? No. Carness has to be in there already. Well, where did that come from? And where did that come from? And where did that come from? Hmm. So Geshe-la says, one of the things to chew on is the question, why does there have to be cheese and chedoks? Why is existence made up of things that are general and things that are characteristic of that general? And where do they all come from? So recall again, the people he's talking to, they've heard this description about the seeds ripening, etc., but they have not had all this training about the 4x4 and how it's nothing but your seeds, right? They were really, really fresher. So we're at an advantage in that we know the punchline, but we're at a disadvantage because it means we're going to just jump to the conclusion and say, see, I know it. And we won't have gone through these work to really show it to ourselves. So if you've got the seeds to just know it, great. If we don't, we want to do the chewing on it. And how do we know if we have the seeds to get it or not? By way of our natural reaction to when somebody pisses you off. That's where we know whether we understand where that's coming from or not. So if anybody can upset you, still, then it's worth chewing on this. Doing these mental exercises. When we really, really, really know where things come from, we finally stop behaving in ways that keep resulting in unpleasantness. We just can't do it anymore. Not, I want to yell back, but I'm not going to, right? That's good. But imagine understanding so clearly where that unpleasant situation comes from, that actually, in one sense, you're going, great, burn it off, right? Just let's get this over with and I'll be kind. Like I want to be kind in that situation versus I want to blast the guy, but I'm not going to do it. Do you feel the difference? The shift in understanding. We can do it sometimes and then other not. So it's our practice. So let's take a break. No, wait, give me 5 more minutes. So this middle way says. Yeah, we get all of that. So let's then explain how things do exist. Like all of this chewing on Chi Chedrak is showing us how things don't exist in the way that we think they do. So how things do exist. They exist through Mingde Shaksam, through a name of, merely through a name and a term. And when we say merely or only or just, in English, it sounds like they're lesser, right? Less real, less important. When we go, oh, that's just, there's a guy out in the field. No, that's just a scarecrow, right? Suddenly it's less important than the guy. But just doesn't mean that. Only doesn't mean that here. Only means there is nothing other than. So Mingde Shaksam means things exist by way of name and term. Mingde, name and term. And just that, only that. Meaning there is nothing other than experiencing names and terms. That's how highest world's way, highest school describes these mental images, creating the identities from unidentified possibility. The information receiving the name and the term. The name is the word, whether you say it mentally, say it verbally, it's the identity we give it. Term means what we mean by that. So when you think our friend the pen, that's the name. The term is everything you know about pens and what pens do. Like everything about every past experience is held in that idea pen. So Ming Day means the idea and the identity. Every mental image that ripens has the idea and the identity. The Chia and the Cheda has to. Ming De Shaksang, highest world says. When you go looking for the thing that gets the label, you won't find it. You won't find the thing you're looking for. You find a new thing getting a new label, a more subtle thing getting a more subtle label. And you keep going down, 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 down until you can't really conceptualize it anymore. And you go, oh, this never stops. Oh, that's how things exist and don't exist. And that's their true nature, that they're not what I thought. You don't end up with oh, there's the true nature. You end up with an absence of what you thought was there. And then you build your way back up and it's like, oh, I get it. Ming De Shaksang. That's what they meant by that. Right? So it's not saying anything different. It's just saying it in a different way with a deeper meaning of Chi Chedog, Ming De Shaksang. All right, now let's take our break. I saw that Frank had his hand up earlier.
Yeah. So just one question. The yelling boss is a changing thing and also a functional working thing.
Because those are all the same thing.
It's all the same thing. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. So what we learn actually with all these terms and so on, I understand we learn the tools for understanding what we're doing with our language and how we categorize and how we work with it to analyze how we
Right.
think and then to come behind it.
Right.
Is it right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Teacher.
Kongli, yes.
Okay, very simple. Okay, if let's say I separate it out, the chi, the chedrak, and then I can understand it, and then even the now, up till now, I can understand theory wise that our mental image, um, uh, of a thing for the thing itself. I mean, because it's our projections.
Right.
So if let's say when I link it up, okay, I still don't get it, the three of them together. And one thing I think that, this my understanding. So you want us to understand the real image or the real thing in our reality, but I still don't get it. Which one is it? You get what I mean? Because this one, I think Geshe, um, he put a lot of efforts in teaching this Chi Chedrak and asked us to cook. I mean, to think about it real hard, and I think quite several times that I'm listening to it, but I still can't get it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a slippery subject matter. And
Yeah.
so go back to the idea of quote car, an idealization archetype car versus a car, the
Uh-huh.
car,
Uh-huh.
that car,
Uh-huh.
blue car,
Okay.
my car, right? All those different ways that we experience a specific and the relationship between a specific and the general idea
Uh-huh.
of the thing's identity.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I have to go back to the car, or the car, then
Yeah.
try to figure it out, and then try to relate it back to the Chi and Chedrak.
Try to experience it, right? Quote car is the chi, the general category of which there is no specific.
Uh-huh.
Where does,
Carness. Is it
and when you go
carness?
a car, right? Carness.
Ah.
You can't point out just carness. You can only point out a car
Uh-huh.
to someone who has carness in their mind already,
Uh-huh.
right? You can't take a mosquito, your friend the mosquito, and show it your car and say, mosquito, that's my car. Do you see? That's my car. Look at it. That's my car. The mosquito is not going to get it,
Okay.
even though maybe it hears your word. Because mosquito mind doesn't have carness ripening in it.
Yeah, correct.
Does mosquito mind not have carness at all? I don't know. Probably it does. But it's not ripening
Okay.
in that lifetime. Do you see? So you're looking for the experience, quote, car, a car, my car, and how we are mistaking the car, my car, a car, for the quality, carness. We think the carness is in the car.
Uh-huh.
What is it?
Okay.
Has to be in my mind. Because if it was in the car, you could set the
Oh.
mosquito on the car, and then the mosquito would know car.
Oh, okay. So from here, he's trying to teach us the emptiness to wipe up all what it is not. Then to get the real what it is, something like that.
Well, except when you say, I'm still looking for what it is, we're mistaken.
Uh-huh.
Because we're so sure we're going to find out, oh, that's it. And the fact that for something to have an appearance, it must be empty. And for emptiness to be there, there has to be an appearance. This is a process happening constantly. We want to pin it down to something that stays put. And if we keep looking for something we can pin down, we are never going to find it.
Okay. Okay. Until this part, I figure out the front part first.
Keep
Thank you.
cooking.
Okay.
Yes, Victor.
Teacher, I find it very interesting when you talk about this angry yelling boss related to this feature da because then I realized that when assuming there's an object which is a boss talk loudly in front of many people, so then there is a cheat. But then Jeddah is like everyone sitting in the meeting room may sense differently, and that is the Jeddah. So
Yes.
like for me, I could feel like this is an angry yelling boss scolding me. So and that is some kind of like Tunchi also. Actually, that is my mental image ripening to this
Right.
to see this angry yelling boss. And then probably my coworker beside me, probably he's thinking that this is a good boss because he's like rectifying the error in the company, in the operation. So yeah, I think I find that is like kind of interesting.
Good. All right, are we back? Mm. Okay. So let's go to our logic section of class. Where we're learning how to build a syllogism and then assess whether our syllogism actually proves what we're trying to prove. So the context through which this is taught is this very early debate between Buddhists and non-Buddhists of the time of ancient India, when, presumably it's Buddha talking to the Vedists. And he knows that the Hindu belief is that Om, the sound Om, is Takpa, an unchanging, eternal nature of the universe. Om, the sound Om. And, because of Buddha's experiences, he understands that that belief is mistaken and that the underlying mistake is the ignorance that's the source of all suffering. So, he naturally wants to take those folks and say, no, Om is not the nature of the universe. Emptiness is the nature of the universe. But he also knows that if you confront somebody's deep belief and tell them it's wrong, that very likely the result you're going to get is pushback, right? Reject. So he knows that you can't change somebody's mind. You can only help them change their own mind. So we use logic to point out things about the other person's belief that they just hadn't connected the dot before. So one might say to this person who believes that Om, the sound Om, is an unchanging nature of the universe, and say, let's consider sounds. Okay. My assertion about sounds is that they are changing things. And the reason I say that sounds are changing things is because they are made things. Okay? If something has to be made, it means it wasn't there. Something impacts something else, and then it comes to be. And then it goes on being. But the very fact that it became means it's going to end. So we're saying to somebody who knows what sound is, sound, you know sound? Yeah, yeah. Well, we assert that sounds are changing things. No, probably the guy's going to say, yeah, I agree with that. Violins make violin sounds, cars make car sounds, wind makes wind sounds. So there's something has to make sound. It isn't just spontaneous there. Right. The reason I say sounds are changing things is because they are made things. Anything that's made has to have been changed and be changing. And then, so the guy who believes that Om is an unchanging thing, he's the one hearing this argument and agreeing. Yeah, sounds are changing things because they're made. That's a proof I agree. And then it's up to them to be thinking someday, wait a minute, Om is a sound. So how can Om be an unchanging, eternal nature of the universe if it has to be made? Right? I either misunderstand Om or I misunderstand, right? There's something I'm misunderstanding here. And hopefully they'll come back and say, wait, explain this to me. How is it that Om can be the nature of the universe and be a sound and be an unchanging thing? It's not logical, right? And if the other guy comes to that conclusion, they come and ask you, and well, let's look at it this way, right? Sit down. Do you have 20 years? I'll explain it to you. But the idea is you didn't go to him and say, Om can't be the nature of the universe because it's a changing thing. The nature of the universe has to be Mingde Shaksam and nothing but. They're not going to listen. So when I said, consider sounds, they're changing things because they are made, we have the karmic goodness to agree with all of that because we already have the seeds to know it. So we didn't have to stop and assess. Wait a minute, right? Is this proof true? But technically we should, even if we think we agree with the syllogism as true. We should stop and go back and check the different components to make sure. So in these logic parts of this course 13, we're learning the different things we need to know to be able to assess these three statements, the definitions of things, how to apply it. So we're just building. So we have our topic of consideration. Statement number 1 is our topic of consideration. Statement number 2 is our assertion about the topic. And statement number 3 is our reason for the assertion about the topic. So in order for this to be a valid argument to help somebody, myself included, come to learn something new, we need to make sure that there are the correct relationships between these 3 statements so that it can really hold. So it can really hold. So we've learned before that there's a stepwise process, and you have to go in these steps in order for the system to reveal what it's meant to reveal. The first step is to compare your topic of consideration, your statement number 1, with your reason for the assertion. So you check statement 1 and statement 3. Is there a relationship between statement 1 and statement 3? So in order to answer that question, we need to know about what is it to be, to have a relationship. A one-way relationship, a two-way relationship, a relationship of this or a relationship of that, because we need to make sure that it's true what we're saying. The reason pertains to the object, not if it's true in real life, but just do they have a relationship? So is there a relationship between this topic, sounds, and being made things? What if our topic was the emptiness of sounds? Let's consider the emptiness of sounds, blah, 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 something about that. And my reason would be because they are made. Would there be a relationship between being made and the emptiness of sounds? No, because the emptiness of anything is not a made thing. So if your statement 1 and your statement 3 don't hold a relationship, then you throw the whole syllogism out. You don't have to check the other 2. Sorry, I forgot where I was going. Then the next step, if 1 and 3 do have some relationship, any relationship will do, then you check what's called the positive necessity. You check your reason, statement number 3, and you say, suppose my reason was true. Not whether or not it's true, just if it were true in life, then would that necessarily mean that my statement 2, my assertion, would also be true? Not if it is in real life, but just logically. If it's true that something is a made thing, is that necessarily true that that thing is a changing thing? Yeah, we know that for something to be made, I said it earlier, it was not, and then it became. In doing so, change happened. So to be made is to be a changing thing. Now, so we can go on. Okay, then we could go on. The next check is called the negative necessity. The negative necessity, you go to your statement 2, your assertion, and you negate your assertion. And if you negate your assertion, does that necessarily also negate your reason? Not in real life, but just suppose. So if we negate our assertion, about changing things, sound are changing things, and we say instead, not changing thing, if sounds are not changing thing, would that necessarily also change the fact that they could be made or that they are made? Yeah, if it were true that they're not changing things, then it would also have to be true that they couldn't be made things. It's not true to life. Sounds are changing things. But to prove that sounds are changing things because they're made, the syllogism has to be such that if we get to this third check, it would have to be true that if it's not true that they're changing things, then it could not be true that they are made things. Right? When that becomes clear, it's like, oh, I get how this system works. It's not, is it true in my world, my experience world? It's logic. We're using logic. And then once we have a syllogism where all three of those relationships hold, 1 and 3 have a relationship. If 3, then 2, yeah, that makes sense. And if not 2, then not 3, yes, that makes sense as well. We have a syllogism that proves our assertion. And we can give an example. If I said, consider sounds, they are changing things because they are green. And we assess, does 1 equal 3? It's like, no. Sounds don't have a relationship with color. They're not green. So you don't go to the rest of it. You just drop it. Consider sounds, they are colors because they're made. Are sounds made? Yes, we can go on. If it's true that they're made, is it necessarily true that they are colors? No, because there are lots of other things that are made that are not colored. Right? And there are lots of things that are sounds that are not colors, like all of them. Sounds are not color. So you don't have to go any further. Consider sounds. They are changing things. They consider sounds. They are the nature of the universe. Because I hear them. Do I hear sounds? Yes. 1 and 3 holds. If I hear sounds, are they the nature of the universe? Not necessarily. So we don't have to go any further. Consider sounds. I'm trying to find if I negate 2, it doesn't negate 3. I can't do it. Consider that sounds. They are pleasant things because they're made. If they're made, no, I can't get past my second statement. Okay, let's go on. I've embarrassed myself enough. So Geshe threw in something difficult. in relationship to this, consider sounds, they are changing things because they're made. To help us better understand the context about the Om as the nature of the universe, he says, let's consider the fact that sounds are changing. Is that takpa or mitakpa? The fact that sounds are changing, is that changing or unchanging? The fact that sounds are changing. That's always true. Anytime you have a sound, it's changing. So the fact that sounds are changing is an unchanging thing. The sounds themselves are changing. Always. And that fact is always true. So he says, facts, truth, if we ever get to something that we can really call a truth, it has to be unchanging. It has to be unchanging. The fact that sounds are changing is truth itself. And that's what we're trying to find. And if we're thinking it's a truth itself that is a thing, we're not going to find it. But when we can hold a truth itself, like the fact that sound is changing, is unchanging. When we can hold those both together, that's when we're getting close. So he said this cryptic thing. So listen carefully, mark it on the recording. He said the set of all things about which we can say sound is changing is exactly equal to the set of all things about you which you can say they exist, which is exactly equal to the entire set of things about which we can say they have no nature of their own. They are only our projections. They are empty. The fact that these are all exactly equivalent sets never changes. This is truth itself. So when he uses the term the set, he's talking a chi. And then our experiences are the chedaks. So we get to cook that one. He says, then consider Sarani. Sarani exists because sound is a changing thing. And he says that's a syllogism that reveals the truth of Sarani's existence. And I'm just going to leave it there. It's one of those ones to cook. Okay, there are a couple more things we need to know. Some definitions. So when we are checking these relationships between our statements, we're checking for we need to understand how to recognize a relationship or not. So we get these definitions for the ways things can be in relationship. And it'll take us a couple of more classes to get it all sorted out. For here, there is Tunchok, Drupe Chu, and Mi Tunchok, of which there are 3. So Tunchok is the word for a group of similar cases. To be able to recognize a group of similar cases, things which are similar to the quality we are trying to prove. If we don't know what it is to be a made thing, then to say sounds are changing because they are made wouldn't mean anything to us. So, of course, we need to know whether we know what we're talking about. But then we also need to understand to the extent that we can whether the other person can know agrees with what we're talking about. Again, we can't prove to the mosquito that my car is a car because we can't communicate. We don't, right? So we wouldn't try. But it's kind of similar when we're trying to prove something to somebody and right, they're not understanding our reasoning. So then you just keep going back until you find something that you both agree on. And then you move forward from there. That's the skill or the art or the fun, the game of learning logic. So group of similar cases, things similar to the quality we're trying to prove. The drup je chu is the word for the quality we are trying to prove. So in our syllogism, consider sounds. Sounds is the subject at hand. Our assertion is that they are changing things because we believe the person we're asserting it to believes that Om is not a changing thing. So our assertion about sound is that it's changing. So the group of things similar to the quality we're trying to prove about it would be the group of all changing things. So if I was trying to prove that sound was green, then the group of similar cases would be all things that are green, which is absurd, right? Green things have nothing to do with sounds, but just suppose in order to get the idea here. Okay. So what's inside that group of similar cases? What's inside the group of all changing things? Cars, horses, toothpaste, food, my thoughts, my emotions, right? Any changing thing then is in the group of similar cases, changing things that are then similar in some way to sound. Wait, toothpaste isn't similar to sound. Yes, it is. In the sense that it's also a changing thing. It's one of those changing things that's not sound. So that we can compare whether being made makes changes, makes sound a changing thing. We need to have other things that are also changing things that are not sound in order for our assertion about sound to hold to sound. Because if our assertion about sound is the same thing as sound, you can't prove it. You can't prove something about it. It has to be a thing characteristic of the general. See why we're learning things characteristic of general? All right. So we're saying that those three relationships have to hold for our syllogism to be accurate to the assertion. And if any one of the three relationships does not hold, the entire argument is incorrect. That the all similar cases and the me, tune, choke are part of these three relationships that we'll get to in next class. But we need to understand what me, tune, choke is. Me, tune, choke means the opposite of tune, choke, which means all dissimilar cases, a group of dissimilar cases. So in our example of sounds, they are changing things because they are made. Things dissimilar to changing things is the me tunchok that we need to know in order to know whether sound is in the category of changing thing. We need to know what is the opposite of that category. And we need to know if there are things that are characteristic of that category. So the opposite of the category of changing things is unchanging things. So there are three kinds of things that are shown to be dissimilar, things that can be shown to be dissimilar to whatever our topic at hand is. There's Mepa mi tunchok, Shempa mi tunchok, and Gelwa min tunchok. A Mepa min tunchok is a thing that's dissimilar by way of being non-existent. So let's compare for being in the category changing thing that are similar to the category changing thing are all those things, right, that we experience: bicycles, hair clips, yelling bosses. Of the things that are dissimilar to changing things, one category of dissimilar are non-existent things. Non-existent things aren't similar to anything, right? They aren't. You can't talk about them. You can't use them in an argument, but we see ourselves doing it all the time. Typical of non-existing things are the horns on the head of a rabbit or sky flower, right? A flower that grows in the middle of the sky, no pot, no soil, no water, just there's flower. And it's like, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as rabbit's horns. So don't bother using those as qualities to be proven or reasons to prove it, because they don't exist. They won't answer anything. They won't prove anything. Mepa mean tuncho. They can't be similar or dissimilar. So they fall in this category of dissimilar by way of non-existence. That's what mepa means. Mi tunchok, Shempa mi tunchok means dissimilar by way of being something other. Shempa means other. But here the other implies something that's in a category that's bigger or broader than the one that you're talking about. So, meaning something that's beyond your quality. For instance, if we say all existing things, that's a bigger category than all changing things. It's like all existing things is a chi, of which all changing things is a cheda. Right? You following me? So if you're trying to prove something with a similar case, and you use these two qualities where one is the bigger category than the other, then it won't allow your proof to hold because they're dissimilar by way of being one bigger than the other. It's not a similar case. So think of Shempa as being like beyond, dissimilar by way of being beyond the one we're talking about. And then Gewa Mitunchok. Gewa means contradiction, which means to say one is to negate the other. They're contradictory. You can't have hot and cold at the same time. You can alternate back and forth. But the same thing is either experienced as hot or it's experienced as cold. They negate each other. So something that's opposite or contradictory to the quality is something that's dissimilar by way of contradiction. Now, sometimes we use these dissimilars on purpose, but usually we're looking for ways in which something in the argument in those three statements is revealing dissimilarity of one of these three kinds, which would help us understand that the syllogism gets negated. But sometimes you use it on purpose to direct your series of syllogisms. So typically, what you do is you start with a syllogism that's not quite right, and then you investigate it to see what's wrong with it, and then you correct it, and you see if that works. And if you still find something subtly wrong with it, you correct it again. And that's how you actually use the logic to investigate something, to come to something new that we didn't know we knew before, because we hadn't combed through the details. So the point with logic isn't to get the first statement exactly right and you're done. It's to weave through this exploration. What's really the ramification of this chi chedok thing? And we can do that with logic when we get good at these fine-tuning how we're looking at the relationships between these belief systems that we're stating. You can see it's an art that I only know about, and I really can't do it well. All right. We have a few minutes left. Let's do another exploration of our Chi Chedok experiencing. Unshare. So choose some object that you have at hand that you can put in front of you and look at. And first, just look at it and recognize that you know what it is. And you know what it's for. We think we know where it came from, right? You've got its identity, its function, its familiarity. You know what it is. Okay, so now set that aside and close your eyes and just touch the thing. And let yourself, again, just explore it. Like before, we didn't know what we're exploring. Now we think we do know what we're exploring. But set that aside and just watch, what information am I actually getting here? And try to actually describe it to yourself. Hard, cool, round. Are you getting enough information just from your tactile sense to identify it? Now look, in the information I'm getting from my tactile sense, did I recognize the shape of the thing? Because shape is not a tactile information. Can you catch your mind adding information? Just simply, let's call it data, tactile data. And already we've got more information than just the tactile. Is there something in the object that's making you do that? Is there something other than the object and other than your mind making you do that? It has to be your own mind making you do that. Is the mind making my current experience, is that a result of something? Doesn't it have to be a result of something? If it's not a result of something, it wouldn't depend on anything else. It would be there all the time. A result is something happening now. It has to have a cause from before. That cause has to be similar in some way. It can't be from a non-existent thing. It can't be from something else, a cause of something else. And it can't be the opposite. There has to be a relationship between the cause and the result. Making our mind take that information to make it into a specific of that general category, the cause, the specific, the result from the general category, the cause. And so of that object that you know what it is, but you can't get enough information for it to be that other than your own mind's mental image of it, what is that object's own nature? Its own nature is the availability to be what your mind puts on it. Thank you very much. And so shift from that object to the you experiencing the object and show yourself your own true nature. That ability to be what's ripening now and now and now and now. And that true nature is present every moment you are present. The fact that you have no self nature proves that you exist and always will. Perpetuated by your kindness. And may it be so. So bring yourself back to your being in your room. And let's recall that person we wanted to be able to help. We don't think we learned anything that we'll ever use to help them, but we did. And that's a great, great goodness. So please be happy with yourself and think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy being. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please stay close. Continue to guide you, help you, inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom. And may it be so. All right. Thanks, my dears, for hanging in there. I know this is really tough stuff. I hope I can make it worth it to you.
Need to ask questions.
All right.
No
Is it
problem,
Remember,
teacher.
you're going to teach it back to me. You're going to teach it back to me at the review class.
It's our seat. If let's say we cannot understand, it's our seat. No problem.
I'm glad to hear that. No.
Thank you so much. Thank you for teaching.
Can I ask questions or is there no
You
time?
may. No,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. This, I'm either a completely illogical being, as are most humans, or this is like, I can't. Okay. For instance, a teacher asserts that Om is an unchanging thing that represents the nature of the universe. It seems to me that it's easy to disprove the literal meaning of a metaphor, which is Om is the nature of, but because but really the issue is the universe an unchanging thing? Not that Om as the sound represent, can prove or disprove that about the the nature of the universe. So, I mean, I get that the whole idea of debate is to just be able to dig into these things, and it's a good way to cook things. But it's like it for instance, like when you say sound is an unchanging thing. Well, they're not talking about a sound like in a physical sound. They're talking about a sound that you hear like in your head. Is the sound that you hear in your head a made thing? Is that the same as a physical sound where it's like the unstruck bell, right?
Right.
So if you talk
Right.
about sound as though it were one thing,
Right.
and then, so what are you really proving and disproving? Because it's all too slippery.
Right. Ultimately, what we're proving is that nothing has any nature of its own. There's nothing but results of mental seeds born of karma. So that's where every argument will eventually land up. So you're thinking it's like, who cares about Om? We care about what's the true nature of the universe. Exactly. Exactly. So we
Yes,
need to be able to find what do we mean about the true nature of the universe. So scientists are going to say Big Bang, and then you investigate.
because I mean, it's like if somebody said, Buddha said we should kill our parents, therefore Buddha is wrong because and it's like, no, he was teaching to a certain group of people, trying to get them to understand something. So it seems, if it's about cooking things, I get it. But about proving things, except that
Right.
things don't have
There
any
isn't
nature of
anything
their
to
own.
prove, right? The
Right.
only thing that we can prove is that there's nothing you can prove.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
thinking of proof in the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the
Okay.
investigation, the logical investigation is way more effective than continually explaining.
Right.
To learn the skill of if this, then that, then that, then that, then that, then that. You don't need my explanation anymore. You'll have the ability to just weed out. Right? It's like an algorithm. You build an algorithm. And all of these details and slipperiness, they're exactly where to go with your logic. And you're absolutely right. We're not going to prove anything except that we can't prove anything.
Okay.
And that's why we try. Yeah, good.
My mind can do that. Sort of.
Right. But using accurate logic, right? Using accurate logic to show that we can't prove anything versus that it really is worth the you right, making ourselves go through the details. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Lately, the thing that's been nagging at me is like I'm living in a world where people don't believe, or certain people are not following the rule of law. And so
Yeah.
I'm not going, you know what? I actually grew up thinking that I was not, that the law didn't really always, apply to me. If I want to speed on the freeway, or
Yeah.
you kind of have to lie to your boss and say, oh, I was having female problems, when you really just were late or something,
Right.
because that's the
Right.
way you get along in the world. But then if you think about it as, ooh, I've made a world where I don't really believe that people should.
Right.
So I'm like going, I need to sit down for like 12 hours and think about how the law applies to me, and maybe my world.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Ow, right? All of us. Ow. Mm. Yeah, good. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody, for making me try this. I'm stopping recording. And then if everyone would click off, please, I need to stay with Pia.